Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Utopia podcast. I am Chris, and with me again is Tommy. Tommy, how are you?
Doing pretty good tonight.
This week, the big news on NCAA football is the rebirth of the Flexbone offense in NCAA Football 10. It came courtesy of Anthony White, who's the playbook guru for NCAA football. I believe he does a little for Madden as well. He breaks down the Flexbone offense and how the team wanted it to be kind of a new and better than what they did with NCAA football and the Flexbone on previous versions of the game. He said that going through, they were able to get the actual game feel from Navy and their Flexbone offense. That gave them a huge advantage of knowing what formations to add in, the plays they needed to add, and also the animations they needed to capture to get the plays working in the game. And the end result were 8 new formations and over 200 new plays result in this Flexbone offense. First off, he talks about some of the new formations that come in. This is really something that I recommend everyone go to the Inside EA Sports blog or go to NCAA Strategies to see the videos that are with this and to see the formations. But we'll go through and talk about this a little bit. Tommy, do you want to talk about some of the formations and also what you saw in the videos about this new and improved Flexbone offense?
Yeah, it was actually in place whenever we went to Community Day, and we got to kind of, or at least I did, tinker around with it a bit. They added a lot of new formations, stuff that nobody had really asked for, but it's stuff that definitely people want. Basically, they rearranged it, especially so that like the strong side might be to the right side, whereas before, typically you'd have, if you had multiple receivers, they were on the left-hand side, that sort of thing. As well, the one that I really like is just kind of a change of what you expect to see is the tackle over. What that ends up doing is actually puts 3 offensive linemen to the right of the center and only 1 to the left, and then to the left of him is the tight end. It's a lot of good stuff included in this update. Like you mentioned, over 200 new plays, 8 new formations, lots of new plays themselves that just simply kind of take advantage of what Paul Johnson and Navy and now Georgia Tech are doing. They really seem to have captured it in not necessarily its true essence, but at least as close as it's ever been on the series.
The videos in this blog are simply of the offense in action. There was some discussion on the forums and amongst the community. Why did they put this with no defense out there? Well, producer Ben Howmiller came out and posted on NCAAstrategies.com that there were a couple reasons why they did offense only. And the big one was just so people could focus on the actual movement of the play, which obviously you see best when the defense is not out there. And there's some other things that with the capture equipment, it just worked out best to have offense only. And I recommend, again, make sure to go to the Inside EA Sports blog or to NCAAstrategies.com to see all these formations. They have pictures of them out there. They have videos of some of the new plays in action. That it's really more of a visual blog this week, so I recommend that everyone checks it out. Tommy, to wrap up the Flexbone, is this something that you'll personally will use this a lot, or are you looking forward more to playing Georgia Tech and having to defend this monster of an offense?
I'll be the guy that wants to use it a lot. I enjoy it to whatever extent is possible on NCAA 09, and with 10, it's just going to be even better. Minor improvements include things like the wingback always goes in motion on every single play, whether he's involved in the play or not. Even if it's just a straight pass, you'll actually always see him in motion. That's a nice thing for us as gamers, because it was always kind of an annoyance to always have to scroll your cursor over to him and pretend as though whether or not you're doing the actual, whether he's going in motion or not. The one thing that see a lot of people, at least not necessarily complaining about, but picking up on, is that no, they don't have the defensive lineman going unblocked, like the defensive end in an option to the right. You won't see the defensive end go unblock and let the quarterback read that. I actually talked with Russ while we were at Community Day about this, and at the point that they're in right now, unfortunately, it actually causes more problems than just simply go out and just leave him unblocked. I can kind of see this, especially after Community Day. I came back and played 09 and kind of worked around with it to see the possibilities of that, and I can see where it can cause problems. Hopefully that's something they can get in the future, but unfortunately this year it didn't make it in.
I know I'm one of the guys who I'm the opposite end of the spectrum compared to you. I'm really looking forward to scheduling Georgia Tech and having to defend this. That's going to be, I think, a lot of fun if my schedule works out where 1 week I'm going it's more of a pass-happy offense, and the next week's schedule a team with a Flexbone offense. That really kind of captures the essence of college football, where each week you're going to see, there's a possibility of seeing a real contrasting style. So I think this was a good blog, and I'm really interested to see what else they did with the playbooks in NCAA Football 10. We do know they added the rocker play that Florida runs with Tebow down towards the goal line. That's something we saw at Community Day. They haven't had an official blog on it yet. They just threw it out there amongst the community in a forum that they added it. So hopefully we'll have a bigger blog later on talking about playbooks and what else they've done besides the Flexbone. The other big news this week, I'm sure everyone has already heard about it, former Arizona State quarterback and Nebraska quarterback Sam Keller suing NCAA and EA Sports for what he claims to be profiting off the likeness of college athletes in not only NCAA football, but also NCAA basketball. This was filed in federal court this week in San Francisco. As we all know, NCAA rules forbid athletes from profiting from the commercial use of their names and likeness. Tommy, what are kind of your thoughts on this, and people are wondering what's going on here. It's a civil lawsuit, and Keller believes that if athletes aren't going to be paid for being depicted in the video games, the NCAA should crack down on EA Sports. What do you kind of think of this?
Well, as a gamer, it's not good to hear at all. Just simply because, especially for the game, I like to have at least have accurate names in the game. And there's potential that if this does happen and things go Keller's way, that we would no longer ever be able to have true names of players in the game. Either they won't allow us to name the teams possibly, or they won't allow likenesses at all to be used. So you might end up having the best player on Florida would end up being, their center instead of Tim Tebow or something like that. We really don't know what's going to happen, and we actually probably won't find out for a while. The lawsuit itself could take up to 2 years. You never know what's going to happen with this.
EA Sports has issued a statement. This came courtesy of the USA Today, and today, Friday, May 8th. EA Sports said that EA, the NCAA, and the CLC, which stands for Collegiate Licensing Company, have reviewed the complaint and do not believe that the claims have merit. EA, the NCAA, and CLC regularly conduct reviews of EA's NCAA-branded games, and we do not believe that any violations of student-athlete rights or NCAA bylaws have occurred. And there was also a previous news story that said that it basically said there are no names and there are no pictures of these players in the game, so therefore it was not a violation. I believe it was the NCAA who said that. I could be wrong. But they're the ones who sign off on the games. That the lawsuit was very interesting, and I recommend people go read it. We have a link to it at ncaastrategies.com. It's not a very long document. It mentions a couple sites where you can attain rosters, and I thought it was very interesting, the two sites that they pulled. They mentioned a site where people have to pay for a file, which to me is actually the biggest violation of profiting off player likenesses, because obviously there are names there. And then it mentioned a site, free, NCAA9rosters.com, started by members of the NCAA strategies community, that was created to combat people profiting off of player likenesses. That one of the complaints in the lawsuit was the EA locker and the ability to share roster files. To me, this is it's an interesting and tough case, because what constitutes a likeness? In his lawsuit, he talks about how some of the player heights match up, some of the player weight matches up, sometimes the home state, some of the styles. But granted, there are no names, and the faces on these games are generic. He says that the faces match up. Maybe if you think that every white person looks alike and every black person looks alike, maybe that's the case. But they're not replicas of faces. And an example I thought of today when I was talking to somebody about this was, think about a movie, and the example I used was, I believe it's the Scary Movie series of movies. You know that the person they're doing a parody of is Paris Hilton. It's a blonde holding a chihuahua. It's a look-alike. She'll have some name like London Hotel, and they're making fun of her intelligence or anything else. But they never get sued for that, and we always have at the end of movies disclaimers saying any likeness to any person, factual or fictional, is purely coincidental. So somehow in the entertainment realm, you can have a direct, very, very close to the likeness, and there's not a problem. That I wonder how this is going to happen now with technology, with this being purely a pixel and polygon world. What constitutes a likeness? Then I think that's really what this is going to come down to. Tommy, before we wrap up the show, what's kind of your real quick last minute thoughts on this, and also your countdown towards the release of NCAA Football 10?
The last little comment I have as far as the lawsuit goes is, would there be a huge problem if, for example, I started creating some celebrity team of rosters and ended up using likenesses, height, weight, etc., and then I started selling those rosters? Would I be in violation of any sort of law or anything like that? It's just simply a matter of names and likenesses in digital content. So we'll see how the courts decide that. It could get really sticky for both parties. We'll have to see how it plays out for EA, NCAA, and then see if Sam Keller has anything more to add to this. So at this point in the season, we now have 66 days remaining, just closing in on 2 months left. So get out there and pre-order.
For Tommy, this is Chris. Everyone, thanks for listening to this edition of the Utopia podcast.